adventures of an incredible personality. A being no larger than an ordinary man, but possessed of powers never before realized on Earth. Faster than an airplane, more powerful than a locomotive.
Well, it is great to see you today. It's great being with you guys, and I want to welcome every single one of you that are here. If this is your first time to North Point, or maybe this is your first time watching or listening online, or maybe you've been coming a while, or maybe this is just your first time to church, however you've come, I just want you to know I am so incredibly grateful that you're here, and I want to welcome you. And today I want to especially welcome a certain group of people. I want to especially welcome moms, because today, yes, there you go. You're very excited about this. And you should be excited because today is Mother's Day, and it's a really big day. And here's what I know about Mother's Day. For me, and I think we're all aware of this, but Mother's Day carries with it so much emotion, doesn't it? I mean, Mother's Day has all this emotion kind of mixed in. There's all these good emotions with Mother's Day and a lot of gratefulness. And on the flip side, there's some hard emotions. Because maybe like me, you can relate, is that, my mom passed away in 2012, and today's a little bit harder day. But what I know about Mother's Day is that it's filled with emotion. There's a lot of emotion. Do you know why? The reason why Mother's Day has so much emotion is because moms are so incredible. Moms are so incredibly valuable. Moms have so much worth. And so, of course, there would be a lot of emotion on this day. In fact, as I thought about Mother's Day this week, I was thinking about moms and just their values. And so I was reading a bunch of different studies and a lot of different research. And there's a lot of stuff available on moms. I would just say, hey, Google's your friend. You should check this stuff out because it's amazing. And there was one study I ran across that it was done with 15,000 moms, so a pretty extensive study. And the point of the whole study was to say, what's the value of a mom? In other words, if you were to pay a mom in 2018 for what they actually do, what would you actually pay a mom? And so in this study, they looked at all the things that moms do and how many hours they actually spend doing these things, and they came up with this exhaustive list. And on this list, I just want to show you a couple things, and they said, here's what a mom on an average week spends her time doing. That a mom spends 6.5 hours doing laundry, 11.4 hours cooking, 6.1 hours driving, teaching our kids NASCAR skills, because we want to produce NASCAR drivers, right? 3.2 hours counseling, and then 4.3 hours, housekeeping on an average week. Now, this is not the exhaustive list. This is just a fraction of all the things that were on the list. And it was so extensive. There were so many things, and I was looking at it. And then in this study, what they did is they took all these hours and all these different things that moms do, and they said, if you had to pay for it, do you know what you would actually pay to, with all these hours? And so at the end of the study, here's the conclusion. They said, based on a 40-hour week, an annual salary of a mom would be $48,509. But moms don't work 40 hours a week, do they? Moms do a lot of overtime. So you look at their overtime hours, 52 hours, that would be $94,593, a total salary of $143,102. Moms are valuable. I mean, moms, you deserve a six-figure income, which is pretty amazing, right? Yeah. And who's clapping over here? Oh, there you are. It's a mom. That's awesome. You know what I'm talking about. But I'm just, as I read this, I was like, man, that is so true. I mean, moms do so many things. They spend so much time. I mean, they're so incredibly valuable. And then I read another study that was just talking about something that's an observation with moms. It was a study of over 1,000 moms. And here's what the conclusion of the study was, which is pretty cool to think about. That moms are asked one question every 2 minutes and 36 seconds. Now, if you do the math on that, that's actually over 200,000 questions a year. That is a lot of questions, right? And what's fascinating, you go further into the study, it talked about that the person who asks the most questions is a 4-year-old girl asking an average of 390 questions a day. I'm like, wow, moms, I love you, right? And then conversely, on the opposite end, a 9-year-old boy actually asked the least amount of questions. It's pretty fascinating to think about. And so the study goes on, and then it said, here's the top 5 hardest questions that moms are asked. And here they are. Number 5 is, how do fish breathe underwater? Which, you need to know that. Number 4 is, why is the sky blue? Number 3, what are shadows made of? Interesting. Number 2, where does the sky end? And then I love number 1 is, why is water wet? Come on, Mom. Tell us what's going on. But this is amazing. I mean, you just if you pause and think about it, I mean, moms need like a PhD in all the fields of science. They need to be a philosopher. They need to be a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a counselor. I mean, they need to be the whole thing. It's amazing. And my point with that is, when you just look and you just kind of scratch the surface in terms of what moms do and their value, I mean, moms are remarkable. Moms are so incredibly valuable. But even on a more serious note, I mean, that's kind of fun to look at. And I think that's important to kind of make an observation about. But on a more serious note, over the years, there's been incredible research on the uniqueness of a woman and the uniqueness of a mom. In fact, there's incredible research. And again, Google's your friend. You can do all this stuff on your own. But there's incredible research to say there's something exclusively given to a woman, exclusively given to a mom, that has more to do or has a significant impact on the emotional and mental development of their sons and daughters. And what women have, or what moms specifically have, is this thing called nurture. And again, there's lots of studies. There's the whole attachment theory, and just done with tons and tons of research. And this thing that you are given as a woman that is called nurture, and you are able to walk with your sons and daughters and teach them to walk and teach them to talk and teach them to how to emotionally respond when they fall and skin their knee. It's the mom who teaches that emotion and how to respond to those things. When someone breaks up with somebody, it's the mom who teaches how to emotionally respond and develops so much of that. And dads, listen, I love you, and men, I'm for you. I am one, and Father's Day is a month away. We'll talk about your uniqueness. But today is Mother's Day. And so today we got to talk about the uniqueness of mom. And guys, here's the deal. Like, moms, you are so uniquely gifted this. You are designed to do this. And dads, as much as you want to, or men, as much as you want to, you can read about it. You can understand the logic. You can understand the philosophy. You can understand all of that. But you can't give it in the same way a woman or a mom can give that to a son or a daughter. When you look at the research, oh my gosh. And even if you just strip, if you're not a Christian and you're not a God person, if you just strip God out of the equation and you just looked at the physiological evidence that exists in a woman and what she gives to that child, oh my gosh, you are incredibly, incredibly valuable. And not only that, but when you look at what's happening in the last decade with research, and it's called fetal psychology, and just kind of what's happening in the womb of that child, or in the womb of a mother, and what's the development of a child. It's amazing the research that's coming out now that's talking about the emotion of a mom, what mom felt, what mom is going through, how she expresses. All of that is actually being translated into the child, imparted into that child. And now that the research is getting longer and longer, they're seeing what happens in the development into adult years, and the successes and the failures and the struggles and the accomplishments in the adult years. I mean, they're making a connection all the way back to the womb. And what mom was doing and what mom was thinking. I'm just telling you, you just step back and you look at this kind of big objective just kind of thing and go like, look at moms. It's unquestionable that moms are so valuable. In fact, if I had to phrase it, I would say moms are heroes. When you look at all the research and all the evidence, moms are heroes. Because the definition of a hero is this: it's a person who is admired or idealized for courage, outstanding achievement, or noble qualities. Moms have an enormous amount of courage. Outstanding achievements, are you kidding me? All the time and all the effort that they spend in the lives of their sons and daughters. And then noble qualities? Are you kidding me? There's something so unique and exclusive to a woman, to a mom, that she can impart on her kids. And you would think that throughout the years or throughout decades and so on, that you would see quote after quote after quote about the importance of moms. And that's actually what you see. When you look at all these famous individuals, you think about a lot of famous individuals. I mean, people come back to their moms and say, man, if it wasn't for my mom, if it wasn't for my mom. And there are all kinds of quotes, and I just want to share one with you today. It's from our 16th president, Abraham Lincoln. And here's what Abraham Lincoln says of his mom. He connected the fact of how valuable his mom is. He said, all that I am or have ever hoped to be, I owe to my angel mother. Moms are heroes. Moms are so incredibly important. Now, guys, that's true, right? Moms are heroes. That's true. This is just kind of undisputable. You look at the objective evidence, you're like, wow. But there is something that has a tendency, or is kind of a temptation, that can rob that truth from a mom. In fact, there is something that we have a tendency to do, not only moms, but all of us have a tendency to do, that kind of steals what's true about a mom and steals what's true about you. And the thing that we are tempted to do, the thing that's kind of in all of us, is to do this, is to compare. Is to look to our right and our left. And guys, do you know why we compare? If you think about comparing and looking to our right and your left, do you know why we do this? We do this because we want to check in to see if we're doing okay. It's like to say, hey, am I doing okay? Am I doing a good job? Am I acceptable? Well, I don't know. I got to look over here and look over here. And what I see over here and over here determines whether or not I'm okay and whether or not I'm acceptable. But here's the danger, and here's the temptation, and here's where comparison leads in your life and my life. When you and I compare, it robs what's true about you. For example, when it comes to moms, and moms, you totally know what I'm talking about. When it comes to being a mom, here's what we have a tendency to do is, as a mom, you begin to look over here. And you begin to look at these moms over here, and oh my gosh, look at, what these moms are doing, and look at how these moms are raising their kids, and how much time, she's spending with her kids. And then you look at her, and you're like, oh my gosh, how many kids does she have? How skinny is she? I mean, she's so skinny, and it's just like, you're looking at her, and just all the things she does, and how much she accomplishes, and she gets up so early, and she does all these activities and work, and you're like, oh my gosh, she's amazing. And then you look at her kids, and you look at her kids and everything that her kids are accomplishing, and they're like on every academic thing. They're getting scholarships to Harvard. I mean, they're making these huge SAT scores. They're making a huge impact in the community, and they're going and going and going. And you look at this mom over here, and then you look at her kids over here, and then you look in the mirror as a mom. And what do you think? You think to yourself as a mom, well, I don't think I'm doing a good job. I feel kind of like a failure as a mom. I'm not sure if I'm acceptable as a mom. Why? It's because of what's on your right and what's on your left. And see, when you decide to compare, it robs you of what's true about you. And what's true about you as a mom is you are a hero. It's undisputed. You have so much value. And that's not only true of moms, but it's also true of the rest of us, isn't it? I mean, you think about ungratefulness and you think about discontentment. Do you know where that comes from? Ungratefulness and discontentment? It comes from awareness. I mean, awareness breeds discontentment. Awareness breeds, ungratefulness. And you look at your house, and you look at your car, and you look at your clothes, and you look at your possessions, and you look at your experiences, and those are amazing. I mean, you're blessed. You really are blessed. But then you look on your right over here, and you begin to go, oh my gosh, but I mean, look at their house, and look at what they have, and look at how much land, and look at how much space is between their house, and look at what they have on their piece of property. And oh my gosh, look at their cars. And then you look over here, and you're like, look at their experiences, and their vacations, and their activities, and their boat, and what they get to do. And you start looking at all this stuff, and then you look at your house, and you're like, oh, I mean, it's nothing. And week after week, or day after day, you drive home, and you can't stand your house. Why? It's because of what's going on over here. Or day after day or week after week, you think about your car and you're like, my car's such a clunker. I mean, it's 2015. Everybody else has 2018s. I mean, come on, And as kind of goofy as that may be, you know what I'm talking about. And it's so interesting because when you look to your right and to your left, it robs you of what's true about you. And what's true about you is honestly, you are so incredibly blessed. And not only is that true, but where this gets a little bit sticky, and those things are important because ungratefulness and discontentment can lead to a lot of not good things. But where this gets, kind of like where it gets a little stickier, it gets hard, especially for me in the nature of my job and just hearing a bunch of stories, is that I see all kinds of people. I hear stories of people who look in the mirror, and do you know what they say to themselves? They look in the mirror and they go, oh, I hate what I see. I hate what I see. I'm such a failure. And when I sit down and actually have a conversation with them and say, can you tell me more about that? Do you know what I discover almost every single time? The reason why they hate themselves, the reason why they think they're such a failure is because they've decided to compare. And they've looked at her and all her features and what she looks like and all her social media things and all her pictures as they looked at him and all his achievements and all his features and what he looks like. And then they look at themselves in the mirror and they're like, I don't measure up. I'm not acceptable. And I hate what I see. And when I hear that, I just think to myself, it doesn't have to be that way. Because when you and I decide to compare, it robs you of what's true about you. And so the bottom line of today, which I'll share on the front end, and then we'll kind of unpack this throughout our time today, but the bottom line is this, and the thing I hope you never forget for the rest of your life and tell yourself over and over and over is this statement. Don't you dare compare. Don't you dare compare. It robs you of the joy of life. It robs you of contentment with what you have. It robs you of the joy and the repercussions of being grateful. It robs you of your kids and looking at your kids and seeing that they're uniquely yours and not somebody else's, and you don't have to keep up and you don't have to keep going. They're your kids. It robs you of that. It robs you of the intimacy of marriage. It robs you, ultimately, of happiness in this life. So that's why I say, don't you dare compare. Now, as we think about that, as we think about God, and if there really is a God, and if there really is a God who loves you, and if there really is a God who cares for you, like he sees you and he cares for you, and if there really is a God who understands kind of the experientially like relevant things in life, things that are relevant to you and relevant to me, and he can really see comparison and how comparison robs you of life, what do you think God would actually say to this? And do you think that God would actually lean into this? I mean, if he really loved you, do you think God would actually lean into this conversation? Well, the answer to that is yes. There is a God who loves you, and there is a God who's inspired individuals to write things down, to speak to you and to speak to me about things that are experientially relevant, about things that we struggle with from time to time. And what's amazing is throughout the scriptures, as you read the Bible, I mean, there's passage after passage after passage about comparison and what it leads to in your life. And so we could look at a lot of different passages today, but I just want us to look at one. And the passage I want to look at is found in the letter of Ecclesiastes. Now, Ecclesiastes, it's a really interesting letter. It's a letter all about meaning. It's a letter all about purpose. In fact, if you're here today and you're not a Christian or you're not a God follower, you know, I love the fact that you're here. I really do. And I don't know why you're here. Maybe it's because your mama said, you know, you got to be here. It's Mother's Day. You will listen to me. You know, that kind of guilted thing. But however you've come, I love that you're here. And if you're not a God follower, you're not a Jesus person, then what I want to encourage you to do, I want to encourage you to read the letter of Ecclesiastes. And one of the reasons I want you to read this is because there's no miracles in this letter. So if you say, well, I don't read the Bible because there's miracles in there, well, this letter is a great letter. It talks about meaning, purpose, significance in life, and there's no miracles. And if you're willing to read this letter, here's what you're going to find. You're going to read the letter of Ecclesiastes, and you're going to be reading it, and all of a sudden you're going to go, oh, wow, that's so true. That's so relevant to my life. I knew that. I felt that before as well. And then you're going to read a section and you're going to go, oh, I think that's in a song. I think I heard that song before. I didn't know that came from here. Wow. And you're going to read through this whole letter and you're just going to go, that is unbelievably true to my life. It's a fascinating letter. And the letter of Ecclesiastes was actually written by a man named King Solomon or Solomon. And Solomon, his story is so amazing. And I wish I had a lot of time to explain Solomon, because the longer I spend explaining who this guy was and what he accomplished in life, the more this makes sense and the more I think we would all go, wow, it's just amazing. But just to give you a little snapshot, Solomon lived about 900 years before Jesus. Solomon was the king of Israel. He ushered in the golden age of Israel, when Israel experienced more peace and prosperity and power than it had ever experienced in its history. That was under the leadership of Solomon. And Solomon was given like a tenfold dose of wisdom by God. In other words, all of us get one dose, but for whatever reason, God chose to give Solomon 10 doses of wisdom. Like he had unbelievable wisdom, comprehension, IQ. I mean, he could put all the pieces together. It was just unbelievable. And you read about the life of Solomon, and in his time, I mean, kings and queens from all over the world would come to sit at his feet and just listen to this guy because he was so brilliant. And he had such insight and wisdom to solve some of life's most complex problems. And Solomon experienced so many incredible things. In fact, everything pretty much that Solomon put his hand to succeeded. In fact, the reason why it's so important for us to listen to Solomon is because everything you desire in life, when it comes to pleasure, when it comes to success, when it comes to money, Solomon got to the finish line of that. Everything you've thought in life that will bring you happiness, that will bring you like contentment, that will bring you satisfaction in life, Solomon actually got to the finish line. I mean, he's the richest man ever to live. And what's so unique about Solomon is he gets to the finish line and he can see all that whole path and everything that led to the finish line. And he gives us insight into what he learned, what he experienced, and what those things that you and I chase in life actually promise. And as an old man, Solomon looks back on all of his life. And part of Solomon's life is an amazing life, lots of success, lots of incredible things. But kind of the second half of Solomon's life, he quit taking his own advice. And it's a horrendous story. I mean, the fall of Israel, the fall of his family, his legacy, all that stuff. He made so many choices that led to just devastating outcomes in his life. So after all of this, after all successes and failures in life, he looks back as an old man and he goes, what did I learn? What's really meaningful and purposeful in life? And he writes about it in the letter of Ecclesiastes. And in Ecclesiastes chapter 4, he leans in to this whole thing of comparison. And he says it in the most interesting way. Here's what he says. He says, and I saw that all toil and achievement spring from one person's envy of another. In other words, Solomon says, hey guys, as I look back on life and I look at all my buddies and I look at all my friends and I look at all these people and how they kind of toiled. This is the idea how they labored, how they worked, how they led, their ingenuity, their innovation, their creativity, all this hard work. As I look at all of that, do you know why they did that? Do you know why they worked so hard and wore themselves out? It's because of one word, envy. It's because they look to their left and they look to the right and they say, oh, look at what they have. Look at their house, look at their car, look at their stuff, look at their clothes, look at their family, look at their kids, look at their experiences. I want that. And oftentimes what envy leads to is because I don't have what you have, I'm not going to let you feel good about you. Because I don't have what you have, I'm not going to let you feel good about you. Oftentimes envy can cause us to say some of the most hurtful things to individuals, or as Solomon says, envy drives us. Envy is the thing behind our labor, our leadership, our innovation, our creativity. It's why we work so hard, because I want what you have, and I want it better. I want it bigger. I want more of what you have. In other words, if you had to summarize what Solomon's saying, he said he saw people determining where they were based on where everyone else was. As he said, as I observed life, here's what I saw. Is that people would go, am I okay? Am I doing okay? Well, let me look over here. And let me look over here. And after they see what they see, they would go, yeah, I'm doing good. I feel good about myself. I'm acceptable. I'm doing good. Life's good. Or they may go, am I doing okay? Am I doing okay? I don't know. Let me look over here. And let me look over here. And after they looked around, they would say, I'm not doing okay. Do you know what Solomon would summarize those activities as? If Solomon says, I've seen all this stuff my whole life, I've got to the pinnacle of everything you want to get to in life, and I failed probably way more than you've ever failed in life. And let me tell you, this envy thing, this comparison thing that drives us, do you know what he would summarize it as? He would say, this too is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. It's almost like this idea that you feel the breeze, that you feel the wind kind of blow on you for a second and it feels so good, but then it passes. And then you try to catch it, and you try to catch it, and you chase it, and you chase it because you want that feeling again and again, and he says you're never going to chase it. You're never going to catch it. You're never going to be fully and finally satisfied. It's meaningless because there's always going to be someone in this world that will have more. that will have something bigger. And as big as you may get and as much as you may achieve, there's always going to be someone who will have more, which means you will chase and you will chase and you will chase, and you never will be fully and finally satisfied. So we think to ourselves, we go, well, Solomon, what then are we supposed to do? Like, are we just supposed to sit here and just do nothing? Like, okay, then fine. Then I shouldn't have any innovation, any creativity, any drive. I mean, is that what you're saying, Solomon? And Solomon anticipated we would think this. And then he says this next. He says, fools fold their hands and ruin themselves. Solomon's saying, guys, I'm not talking about just sitting there and being passive and lazy. I mean, you'll ruin yourself if you do that. And think about this. This is Solomon. Solomon built one of the 7 wonders of the world in his lifetime. I mean, Solomon's ingenuity, his engineering, everything that he accomplished, it's unbelievable. He's not talking about laziness. He says, fools sit there and fold their hands and do nothing. Then our question is, Solomon, what are you talking about? What are you getting at here? And Solomon says, well, let me try to explain. And so he says these words. He says, better one handful with tranquility. Tranquility is peace. Tranquility is joy. Tranquility is happiness. Tranquility is in the best sense of the word, it's silence. It's, oh my gosh, I can just rest. He says, better one handful with tranquility than 2 handfuls with toil and a chasing after the wind. And here's what he's getting at. I'll try to illustrate it this way. See, Solomon says, hey, when you decide in life to pick the most important things in life, when you say, hey, here's the most important things. You know, this is my family, and this is my job to provide for my family. And this is what I do for personal health. You know, personal health, to be self-aware. You know, if I'm going to give the best version of me to my kids, to my wife, to my husband, to people, you know, there's some self-care involved. And this represents, you know what? I want to make the world a better place. I want to do things like God has created you with unique gifts to do things, to love people well, to be part of what he calls the body of Christ, so that we collectively can love people extraordinarily well when we come together. And so these are some of the most important things in life to spend your time with. And Solomon says, guys, when you live your life like this, one handful, pick the most important things with tranquility, which means you're going to have to learn to say no. You're going to have to say, this hand, I could, but I'm going to say no. And I'm going to have some margin in my life. And I'm going to have to say no to some things with my kids. And I'm going to have to say no to some things that, you know, are not as important to toil as these most important things. He says, when you live your life this way, this is where tranquility will be found. Because sometimes there's a ball that's going to drop. And you have a hand to catch it. Life's going to get hard. You know, there's going to be seasons in your marriage. There's going to be seasons of work. There's going to be seasons with your kids. And you can catch it. You have a hand to do that. But he says, here's where the rub comes in. Here's where the tension comes in. Is when you look at this and you're like, man, I have peace. And there is some tranquility. I have some margin in my life. You know, and I'm able to catch things. But then what we begin to do is we begin to look on our right and on our left. And look at what she has. And look at what they have. And I want what they have. And so we take our second hand and we go, you know what? I got to work a little bit more. Hey, I got to travel a little bit more. Hey, you know, this is for the kids. I want the bigger house because then we can use it to serve people better, whatever. So I got to work more. I got to do more. I got to spend more hours. I got to take that job. I've got to chase that thing. And so there's a lot more hours. And then when it comes to our kids, when it comes to our family, we have to say yes, 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 because those kids are doing it. And those kids are part of that activity. And those kids get to go there. So my kids better keep up because if I love my kids, I got to do what they're doing. And all of a sudden, we live our lives like this. And Solomon says, this you will not find tranquility. In fact, you live your life this way, even if you get the bigger house, you get the boat, you get the vacations, you get those things in life, you can't truly enjoy them. And I think you know what I'm talking about because when you go on vacation, how long does it take you to come off? Living this kind of way? Because you're living at such a pace, you're like, it's 2 days, 3 days, 4 days before I can actually take a breath. Because I'm living with 2 handfuls. Even if you get it, the very thing you thought would bring you happiness, you can't quite enjoy it. And in essence, what Solomon says, when you and I live like this, it's our attempt to get the most out of life. And when we try to get the most out of life, we can lose control of our lives. And before long, it's, oh my gosh, this really important ball drops. This important ball drops. This important ball drops. And you're going, it's falling apart. I'm losing control. There is no tranquility because you're living with 2 handfuls full of toil. You know what Solomon says when we choose to live this way? As he summarized it, he says this. He says, this too is meaningless. And I love this phrase, a miserable business. The word miserable literally means unhappy. Business is the activities of life, the business of life. So you try to live like that, do you know what that'll lead to in your life? An unhappy life. And Solomon started the whole conversation about landing in this place to where we're living this way. He started this whole conversation to go, you know what leads to that? Envy. I see what you have, which reminds me of what I don't have. And if I had what you have, then I would finally be happy. I'd experience tranquility. So I got to live with 2 handfuls. He says, you know what that envy leads to? It rots the bones. And so this is why I say, the thing I hope you never lose sight of, the thing I hope you never forget, the thing I hope you remind yourself and put different places to remind yourself over and over and over, is don't you dare compare. Don't you dare compare, because it robs the joy of life. It robs contentment in life. It robs you of tranquility in life, and it ultimately robs you of happiness in life. So, my question is, how are you doing with this? In your personal life, as you walked in here today, how are you doing with this whole comparison with other students and what's on social media and what they're wearing and who they're dating and how many people like them, or at work or in your neighborhood or with your friends, with your family? How are you doing with this? In other words, to kind of dig a little bit more on this for all of us, I want to ask a couple questions just to kind of see how we're doing. Think about it this way. Are you exhausted in your personal life? Are you exhausted from trying to keep up with fill in the blank? When you come home at night, is the only thing that you want to do is just kind of watch TV and numb out? Is it when you come home at night, are you so exhausted that the idea of like investing in your kids and trying to figure out the problems that are at home with your kids and the challenges and celebrations and all these, you just don't have the energy to do that? When you come home at night, are you just like, oh, I'm so tired, can I just have another one of these? Because this kind of takes the edge off. In other words, I just have to numb myself so I can just exist in this home because I'm so exhausted from living my life with 2 handfuls of toil. Are you exhausted because you're trying to keep up with fill in the blank? How about this? Are you in debt from trying to keep up with fill in the blank? Do you have a credit card balance that just, month after month just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger because you're looking on the left and looking on your right and you're like, look at what they have and look at their experiences and it's not fair. I deserve this. My kids deserve this. I mean, this is meaning and purpose in life. If I can get those things, so I'm going to go into debt. I'm going to go into debt. Are you living your life that way because of what's on your left and your right? Or think about this way. When you pray or if you pray, when you talk to God, is your conversation with God, God, thank you for my home. It's an amazing home. Thank you for my car. Thank you for my 2 cars. Thank you for the fact that I have a refrigerator in my garage that has food. I have 2 of them. Thank you. Or is your conversation with God more about give me? If you love me, you would give that to me. If you want me to be happy, you better give that to me. What's your conversation with God like? Think about this. Are you allowing what others have to keep you from enjoying what you have? When it comes to gratefulness and contentment, how are you doing with that? And is what's on your left and what's on your right, is that driving this discontentment? Is that awareness, you're so hyper aware, which I get, I live in the same world you do. Is that awareness kind of distracting you from what's right in front of you, what you have, what God has blessed you with? Or when it comes to your kids, do you enjoy your kids? do you enjoy them? Or are you driving them crazy because of what everybody else's kids are doing and accomplishing? Are you looking at all those kids and all the activities and all the things that they're saying yes to, and their parents are living like this and trying to keep up with everything, and you're driving your kids crazy? I mean, I don't mean to push too hard, but are you willing to tell your kids no? Sweetie, no. Honey, no. It's one handful. This is as far as we're going to go. This is where tranquility will be found in our home. This will give me time and margin to discover your heart, to sit around the dinner table together and have honest conversations. We can choose to live this way, but it will rob us of the joy of you and of our family. Or when it comes to your marriage, is it possible that your spouse feels like you are dissatisfied with him or her because of your propensity to make comparison to other husbands or wives? Does your husband or wife feel that kind of pressure? Because all of a sudden you're looking at this over here, you're looking at this wife over here, and you're projecting that on your wife, and she always feels like, she's not enough, because you keep putting that and putting that and putting that on her because of what's over here. On the other end of the spectrum, your husband feels so disrespected because he's not like that husband. He's not like that husband. He's not like that guy over here or whatever. And he feels that constant pressure because of comparison. How are you doing with this? Or moms, it's Mother's Day. Moms, do you feel like a hero? Because it's undeniable you are. It's unquestionable you are. You are so valuable. You have so much worth. You are uniquely designed to love and to lead your sons and daughters. Do you feel like a hero? Or you looking on your right and your left, and it's robbing you of what's true about you? You see, this is why I say the thing I hope we never lose sight of is this. Don't you dare compare. Don't you dare. We're all tempted to do it. It feels kind of like it's part of us, but don't you dare look to your right and to your left. Instead, do you know what we should do? The scriptures tell us. In Hebrews, it says, let us fix our eyes on Jesus. Because when we decide, no, we're not going there, I'm going here. Do you know what Jesus says? He says that I'm the author and perfecter of your faith, that I am the way, the truth, and the life. Do you want to know the way of life? Do you want to know what life is all about? Do you want to know what's true in life? Do you want to know how you can know what's true about you? It's when you fix your eyes on Jesus Christ. As a mom, you can see yourself that he said, I've given you everything you need for life. I've given you everything you need for your son and daughter. That I knit them together in your womb. I know every hair on their head, and I have plans to prosper them and not harm them. And I've chosen that you get to be part of that plan. You have such value and such worth as a mom. So, the bottom line is don't you dare compare. It robs you of what's true about you. But when we choose to fix our eyes on Jesus, it affirms, it tells us the truth. He tells us the truth about you, and that you are valuable, that you are worth it, and that you have what it takes. Let me go ahead and pray for us. Father, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for your grace. Thank you for your love. Thank you that you have preserved the scriptures throughout these years so that we can learn some very practical things in our life. Father, this is so part of us, this whole comparison thing, and it's part of my life, and you know that. So Father, this day, the weeks forward, the months forward, I pray that you meet us. I pray that you remind us of what's true, because you are the truth. And that you give us the wisdom and the courage to make decisions, to choose to live with one handful, so we can experience the tranquility you desire for our lives. I trust you with that, Father, in Jesus' name. Amen. Guys, thanks so much for being here. I'll see you next week.